Hungary stands at a crossroads, torn between its EU membership and a growing attraction to the east. The government in Budapest has deepened ties with Moscow and Beijing, sparking a national debate. Should Hungary remain in the EU or pivot toward BRICS? Supporters of the Eastern opening argue the West is in decline, while critics warn of abandoning democratic values. Disillusionment with Brussels and frustration over EU policies fuel this debate, making the BRICS alternative seem increasingly viable. Hungary's choice is now about national identity and destiny, a decision that could reshape not just Hungary but the future of Europe itself. Hungary's energy security is deeply tied to Russian oil and gas, forming the backbone of the country's power generation, heating, and transportation sectors. For decades, Hungary has relied on a steady, affordable flow of Russian energy to keep its economy running and its homes warm, making it one of the most dependent countries in the European Union on Moscow's resources. The Druzhba pipeline, a vast network stretching from Russia into Central Europe, serves as Hungary's main supply line for crude oil. This pipeline is not just a piece of infrastructure, it's a lifeline, delivering the majority of Hungary's oil imports directly from Russian fields. Disruptions, like the August 2025 attacks on the pipeline, exposed Hungary's vulnerability and dependence on Moscow. When the pipeline was damaged, fuel shortages and price spikes rippled across the country, highlighting just how fragile Hungary's energy security really is. Alternatives such as the Adria pipeline from Croatia exist, but they cover only a fraction of Hungary's needs. The Adria route can supplement supplies, but it cannot fully replace the volume or reliability of Russian oil, leaving Hungary with few viable options. Retooling Hungary's refineries to process non-Russian oil is both costly and slow. The technical challenges are significant, requiring major investments and years of work, time Hungary may not have if supplies are suddenly cut. The government argues that Western sanctions on Russian energy hurt Hungary more than Russia, fueling calls for closer ties with Moscow. Many officials warn that without Russian oil and gas, Hungary's economy could grind to a halt, and ordinary citizens would bear the brunt of the crisis. For Budapest, energy is not just economics, it's survival. Blackouts and fuel shortages are not distant threats, but real possibilities that shape daily life and political decisions. This dependence makes the idea of aligning with Russia and BRICS seem pragmatic, even as it deepens Hungary's rift with the West. For some, closer ties with Moscow and new alliances offer a way to secure energy and economic stability, despite the risks. The energy crisis is at the heart of Hungary's foreign policy dilemma, forcing leaders to choose between loyalty to the EU and the practical need to keep the lights on at home. The prospect of Hungary leaving the European Union in favor of joining the BRICS alliance has become one of the most polarizing debates in the country today. On the streets of Budapest, in parliament and across dinner tables, Hungarians are divided, torn between the familiar security of the West and the enticing promises of the East. Proponents of a pivot toward BRICS argue that the alliance offers Hungary a gateway to greater energy security, especially through Russian oil and gas, as well as a surge in Chinese investment. They see BRICS as a symbol of a new, multipolar world order, one that promises to respect national sovereignty and allow Hungary to chart its own course, free from what they perceive as EU overreach. State media and government-aligned outlets amplify these arguments, often portraying BRICS as dynamic, forward-looking, and full of opportunity, while painting the EU as bureaucratic, stagnant, and increasingly out of touch with Hungarian values and interests. But critics warn that BRICS is, at its core, a loose club of authoritarian states, lacking the deep economic integration, legal protections, and security guarantees that the EU provides. They argue that Hungary's democracy and rule of law could be at risk, and that aligning with BRICS might mean turning away from the values that have anchored Hungary in Europe for decades. Leaving the EU would mean losing access to the world's largest single market, as well as vital development funds that have transformed Hungarian cities and countryside alike. It could also risk economic and political isolation, making it harder for Hungarians to travel, study, or work across Europe. For many, the debate is about more than economics or geopolitics. It's about Hungary's identity as a European democracy, its place in the world, and the values it wants to uphold for future generations. The choice facing Hungary is stark and deeply consequential: to remain anchored in the prosperity and security of the West, or to pursue uncertain opportunities with the East. The decision will shape not only Hungary's future, but also its very sense of self. Hungary's growing tilt toward the east, especially its deepening ties with Russia and China, has put significant strain on its relationship with the United States, which remains its most important NATO ally. Once seen as a reliable partner in the alliance, Hungary now finds itself at odds with Washington over its foreign policy choices and energy deals. The Biden administration has been vocal in its demands, urging Hungary to reduce its dependence on Russian energy imports. American officials argue that Budapest's continued business with Moscow undermines Western unity at a time when the US and its allies are trying to present a united front against Russian aggression in Ukraine. The White House has repeatedly warned that Hungary's actions could weaken the effectiveness of sanctions and embolden the Kremlin. Yet, the situation is complicated by former President Donald Trump's own contradictory stance. While Trump has publicly criticized Hungary for its ongoing purchases of Russian oil, he has also signaled that, if re-elected, he might take a softer approach toward Budapest and even push for a quick end to the war in Ukraine. This has left Hungarian leaders hoping that a Trump victory could bring relief from US pressure and a possible rollback of sanctions. This paradoxical situation leaves Hungary in a precarious position, criticized by both the current and former US administrations, yet still betting on a potential shift in American policy. Prime Minister Viktor Orbán finds himself increasingly isolated on the international stage, with few reliable allies left in the West. The growing rift with Washington not only weakens Hungary's standing within NATO, but also erodes its influence in the European Union. As Hungary drifts further from its Western partners, it becomes more susceptible to the interests and influence of Russia and China, raising concerns about its future direction. Mixed signals from the US, tough rhetoric from the Biden administration, but hints of a different approach from Trump add to the uncertainty. This ambiguity makes it difficult for Hungary to chart a clear course, and the stakes for its next move have never been higher. As the transatlantic divide deepens, Hungary stands at a crossroads, its future in the Western alliance more uncertain than ever before. Hungary's flirtation with BRICS is part of a broader strategy by Russia and China to challenge the Western order. Their alliance aims to undermine EU and NATO unity, using countries like Hungary as wedges. Moscow and Beijing coordinate diplomatically, economically, and militarily, presenting a united front against Western influence. By encouraging Hungary's dissent, they weaken Europe's ability to act decisively. The expansion of BRICS and similar institutions is designed to institutionalize their influence and promote a world safe for autocracy. Hungary's potential pivot is a test case for this new order, a sign that the contest between democracy and autocracy is moving into Europe. The stakes are global, and Hungary is at the center. Hungary's debate is shaped by a digital battlefield where Russia and China deploy sophisticated propaganda and disinformation. State media and AI-driven campaigns amplify narratives of Western decline and Eastern strength, eroding trust in democratic institutions. These tactics polarize society, making rational debate difficult and pushing the idea of leaving the EU into the mainstream. The use of AI and deep fakes allows foreign actors to micro-target Hungarian audiences, promoting cyber sovereignty and authoritarian stability. The result is a fractured information environment where fact-based discussion is nearly impossible. Hungary's decision is being influenced as much by foreign-backed narratives as by domestic politics. The outcome may hinge on who controls the story. Hungary's choice will have profound consequences for itself and Europe. Aligning with BRICS risks economic downturn and political isolation, while emboldening Eurosceptic movements across the continent. Such a move would be a historic rupture, validating Russian and Chinese narratives of Western decline. Security risks would rise, undermining NATO and creating strategic vulnerabilities in Europe. Hungary's decision is a bellwether for the resilience of democratic values and the future of the European project. Remaining in the EU could reaffirm the Union's strength. Leaving could mark the start of a new era of division. The path Hungary chooses will echo for decades, shaping the map of power in the 21st century.